Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we are doing something a little different, something that, honestly, I've been looking forward to since I first cracked open this file.
Oh, yeah.
We are looking at a book called It's Not You, It's Biology by Joe Quirk. But here's the twist. We aren't just reading the chapters.
No.
We are taking a magnifying glass to the back matter, the abstract, the notes, the bibliography, and what the author calls the useless index.
It's a fascinating approach. I mean, usually people just skip the back of the book.
Completely.
It's the fine print that, nobody ever reads. But in this case, that's where the engine of the argument really lives.
That's a great way to put it. The engine.
It's where Quirk sort of hides the hard science that supports his very, let's say, colorful claims.
Colorful is putting it lightly. I mean, when you have chapter titles like Female Promiscuity Controls the Size of Your Testicles and index entries for Ass Quest for, you are not reading a standard high school biology textbook.
Not at all. But the premise here, it's actually quite serious, isn't it?
It is. The title says it all. It's not you, it's biology.
Exactly. The core thesis Quirk is presenting is that the struggles we face in relationships, all the confusion, the cheating, the jealousy, the obsession with looks.
All the stuff that drives us crazy.
Right. He's saying they are not personal failings. And they're not even really cultural constructs in the way we usually think of them.
So it's not society's fault.
Not primarily, no.
Yeah.
He argues they are hardwired biological imperatives. We are essentially operating with software that was coded back in the Pleistocene era.
The Pleistocene. So we're talking about, what, stone tools, woolly mammoths?
Small tribes on the savannah, yeah.
Wow.
Right. The argument, which is supported by a lot of the evolutionary psychology citations in his notes, is that our brains evolved to solve very specific problems in that environment.
Okay.
And now here we are trying to use those same brains to navigate modern dating and marriage and, office politics.
It's the classic fish out of water scenario.
It is.
But the fish is a naked ape, and the water is a singles bar in downtown Manhattan.
Precisely. And what's so interesting here is the tone. You mentioned the humor, and it's everywhere.
It really is.
But if you actually look at the bibliography, he is citing the heavy hitters. I mean, Richard Dawkins, David Buss, Robert Travers, Jeffrey Miller.
The big names.
He's taking very dense, very academic evolutionary science and translating it into jokes about testicles and dating.
Which I love. It makes the medicine go down easier,
It does.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the afterword, I think, because there's this really vivid image Quirk uses that just stuck with me.
Ah, yes.
He talks about cracking open a cadaver's skull.
It is a provocative opening. He asserts that if you take a human brain out of a skull, you don't need to look at it for very long at all to tell if it's male or female.
That is a bold claim in today's climate.
It is.
We're so used to hearing that gender is a social construct and that brains are, essentially unisex.
And he's pushing back on that. His argument is that men and women specialized in different tasks during the Pleistocene, those different jobs, hunting versus gathering, protecting versus nurturing.
Right.
They required different neural wiring. It's not about one being better than the other. It's just about specialization.
Different tools for different jobs.
Exactly. So he says, now we understand why the other sex feels what it feels.
So it's not that men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Yeah.
It's that men are from the hunting grounds and women are from the foraging fields.
Essentially, yes. And he even plugs the next book in the series right there. Tools are from men, talk is from women. It sets the stage for everything else in the notes.
How so?
If you accept that the brain is a sexually dimorphic organ, meaning it's physically different between the sexes, then everything else, from how we flirt to how we fight, it all stems from that biological root.
Okay, so if the brain is the hardware, let's look at the software.
Oh.
Or maybe firmware is a better analogy.
I like that.
We have to talk about section 1, the sperm and egg problem.
Oh.
This seems to be the foundation of, well, everything.
It is the fundamental economic disparity of nature.
Economic. That's a weird word to use for biology.
It is, but it's the perfect word. In the notes for Chapter 1, Quirk cites Robert Travers' seminal 1972 paper.
Right, parental investment and sexual selection.
That's the one. This is crucial. Before Travers, people just kind of assumed males and females acted differently just because.
That's just the way it is.
Right. Travers gave it a mathematical logic. He argued that the sex that invests more in the offspring, biologically speaking, will always be the choosier sex.
And in humans, that's the female, no question.
Just look at the biology. Quark's index has an entry for egg and one for sperm.
Okay.
And under egg, he notes the market value compared to sperm.
And let me guess, the sperm isn't worth much on this
Yeah.
biological stock market.
The index literally lists relative worthlessness of under the entry for sperm.
Ouch. That hurts my feelings a little bit, but I get the logic. I do.
But biologically, it's true. A man produces millions of sperm daily. It's cheap to produce. It takes almost no metabolic energy.
Right.
So if a man makes a mistake in mating, say, he mates with a partner who isn't ideal, what has he really lost?
5 minutes and a teaspoon of glucose.
Exactly. Whereas the egg...
The egg is a completely different story.
An egg. A woman has a limited supply, a finite number. She's born with all the eggs she'll ever have.
Wow.
And once that egg is fertilized, it requires 9 months of gestation, huge caloric resources, immune system suppression, the physical risk of childbirth.
And then years of lactation, traditionally.
Right. The cost of that one egg is astronomical compared to the sperm.
So because the egg is so expensive, the woman has to be picky. She's the investor putting down the $1 million deposit.
She has to be.
And because sperm is cheap.
Men are biologically incentivized to spread it around. This is the sperm and egg problem. It creates a conflict of interest right from the moment of conception.
An evolutionary arms race.
That's what it is. And the notes also cite Matt Ridley's The Red Queen here, which is all about that arms race between the sexes.
This leads us directly to that chapter title I mentioned earlier.
The testicles one.
Female promiscuity controls the size of your testicles. I have to know, what is the science behind this? I see a citation for R.V. Short here.
Oh, this is one of the most famous correlations in all of primatology. It's fascinating. R.V. Short noticed that if you look at different primates, the size of the testicles relative to body weight tells you exactly how the females behave.
Exactly.
It's an almost perfect predictor.
How did that work? Break it down for me, like with the different apes.
Okay, so take gorillas. Silverbacks.
Yeah.
Huge animals, very dominant. A silverback might weigh 400 pounds.
A beast.
But his testicles are tiny, smaller than a human's.
Why?
Because the alpha male fights off all the other males physically. He uses muscles and teeth. Once he owns the harem, he has zero competition inside the female. His sperm doesn't have to race anyone else's sperm.
Okay, so no competition means you don't need big engines. The factory can be small because it's a monopoly.
That's a perfect analogy, exactly. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you look at chimpanzees.
All right.
They are extremely promiscuous. Females will mate with multiple males in quick succession, sometimes within minutes of each other.
Okay, so that creates...
Sperm competition. The sperm from different males are literally racing to the egg inside the female reproductive tract.
It's the Olympics of reproduction.
It is. And in a race like that, you want numbers. You want to flood the zone. So the males with the bigger factories, the bigger testicles, produce more sperm, won the race more often, and passed on the genes for
big testicles.
For big testicles. So large testicles are evolutionary evidence of historic female promiscuity.
So where do humans fit on this scale? Are we gorillas or are we chimps?
We are somewhere in the middle, but leaning more towards the chimp side than the gorillas. Our testicles are larger than a gorilla's relative to body size, but smaller than a chimp's. This implies that throughout our evolutionary history, we weren't perfectly monogamous like the gorilla.
But we weren't a total free-for-all like the chimp.
Right. There was just enough female promiscuity to make sperm competition a real evolutionary factor. The book cites Baker and Bellis's book, Human Sperm Competition here, which is full of fascinating, if slightly graphic, details about how this war is waged.
And the index has a field day with this, of course.
Yeah.
Under testicles, it just lists brainlessness of.
Yes.
It's just so blunt.
And under sperm, it says amount produced and relative worthlessness of. It's Quark's way of highlighting that while men might think they are in charge, their very anatomy suggests they are actually responding to female behavior. The female sets the rules of the game. The male body just adapts to play it.
That is a total flip of the script. We usually think of males competing for females as if the males are driving all the action.
You do.
But you're saying the male body is just a reaction to what women were doing for millions of years.
Precisely. We are phenotypic echoes of ancient female choices. If women had been different, men would look different.
That is humbling. Wow. Okay, speaking of bodies, let's move to section 2, the physical resume.
I love that term.
Quirk calls bodies resumes. It's brilliant. You're not just looking at someone, you are reading their genetic CV.
That's the evolutionary psychology perspective in a nutshell. Physical beauty isn't arbitrary. It isn't just, in the eye of the beholder.
It's a signal.
It's a signal of health and genetic fitness, a good resume.
And nothing seems to signal this more, at least according to the book, than the famous waist-to-hip ratio. I see a lot of notes here for Chapter 31, broad hips, big butts.
This is classic research by a scientist named Devendra Singh. The citation lists his work on the adaptive significance of waist-to-hip ratio. He did these landmark studies where he showed men line drawings of women with different body weights and shapes.
And what did he find? Is there a magic number?
It's generally around 0.7.
The hourglass figure.
Exactly. The theory is that this specific ratio signals two key things: fertility and the absence of pregnancy. It says, I am healthy, I am old enough to breed, and I am not currently carrying another male's offspring.
And this holds up across cultures. Because we always hear that beauty standards are cultural. In some places they like thin, and others they like curvy.
That is the common assumption, but the notes here point to something else. Quirk cites studies on the Hasda of Tanzania and the Anang of Nigeria.
Tell me about the Anang. I see a note here about a fattening room. What is that?
Yes, there's a citation for that. In this culture, thinness is associated with sickness or poverty. So girls are secluded and fed these high-calorie diets to gain weight before they get married. It suggests that fat, specifically glutofemoral fat, the fat on the hips and butt, is highly valued.
So they like them bigger than, say, a runway model in Paris.
Much bigger. But, and here is the key point, Devendra Singh found that even in cultures that prefer heavier women, they still prefer that specific 0.7 waist-to-hip ratio. Yes, they want a heavy woman, but they still want the waist to be about 70% of the hips. The overall weight changes, but the geometry of attraction remains constant.
That is fascinating. So the resume might be printed on different paper, heavier stock or lighter stock, but the font is always the same.
That's a great way to put it. And the index, of course, has a very blunt entry for this. Under ass, it lists why yours is so big, and quest for.
Quest for ass. It sounds like a bad fantasy novel.
It does.
But Quirk also notes something about deception. I see a citation here about, is fat deceptive?
Ah, yes. This is the idea that these features might have evolved to mimic something better.
Like what?
To mimic a wider pelvic girdle for easier childbirth or better milking capacity than actually exists. It's basically false advertising.
Huh.
Nature is full of it. If you can look more fertile than you actually are, you attract better mates.
Fake it till you make it, evolutionary style.
Pretty much.
Now, we have to talk about the male side of this resume, the height thing. Chapter 11 is titled, Male Promiscuity Decides Your Height.
This goes back to sexual dimorphism, the size difference between sexes.
Right.
In species where one male fights to monopolize many females, like those gorillas we mentioned, or elephant seals, the males are vastly larger than the females.
Because the big guys win the fights and get all the mates.
Exactly. Whereas in strictly monogamous species, males and females are roughly the same size.
So we're humans.
Humans are moderately sexually dimorphic. Men are generally taller and heavier. This suggests our ancestors practiced some degree of polygyny. We fought for mates. Size mattered.
But then we get to the more specific anatomy, Chapter 32, why your penis is easy to find.
Yes.
And the index entry, the penis paradox, and the Leaning Tower of Pisa. What on earth is the penis paradox?
The paradox is that humans have the largest penis relative to body size of any primate, by far.
Okay.
A gorilla, that 400-pound silverback, its penis is tiny, about 1.5 inches when erect.
Seriously.
Seriously. A human male is much smaller than a gorilla, but, well,
Right.
you get the picture.
So why do we need all that extra equipment? Is it for better fertilization or something?
That's the question, and the notes cite some articles here, including Jeffrey Miller's work. The theory is that the human penis evolved not just for the mechanics of sex,
But for what then?
but as a display.
A display, like a peacock's tail.
Exactly like a peacock's tail. It's a courtship device. The index entry, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, is a bit of a joke, but it hints at the visibility of it.
And there's another entry, isn't there? Penis. Proof that men's obsession with their penises is all women's fault.
Blaming the customer for the product design.
It's brilliant.
In evolutionary terms, yes. If women didn't, on average, prefer it over millions of years, men wouldn't have evolved it. The selection pressure comes from the chooser. If females consistently chose males with slightly larger genitalia, then that trait becomes exaggerated in the population over time.
Now, I see a note here for Chapter 38 asking, why men have nipples? This is one of those classic questions kids ask and parents just stumble over.
It is. It's a great developmental biology question. The notes link it to prenatal hormones.
Okay.
Basically, the default body plan for a mammal is female. We all start as females in the womb.
I've heard that.
Nipples develop before the androgen wash. The big dose of testosterone kicks in to turn the fetus male. Men have nipples because it wasn't metabolically expensive enough for evolution to delete them.
There's leftovers.
Vestigial architectural details, they don't hurt anything, so evolution just didn't bother to scrub them from the blueprints.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Section 3, Mating Strategies and the Game. We've got the hardware, now how do we play? Chapter 3 is What Women Want.
This gets into status. The notes cite Side's work on rhesus monkeys and determinants of dominance. It also cites sociological studies on marriage mobility.
Marriage mobility, that's marrying up, right?
Yes. The data consistently shows that across cultures, women place a higher premium on status, resources, and dominance than men do.
And men.
Men prioritize youth and beauty, which, as we've said, are fertility signals. Women prioritize the capacity to provide and protect.
But it's not just about being rich. It can't be that simple. Chapter 9 talks about the jerk gene.
The jerk gene. This addresses the age-old question. Why do nice girls sometimes go for bad boys?
The eternal question. I see citations here for elephant seals and interspecific comparisons of vocal and reproductive behavior. What do elephant seals have to do with jerks at a bar?
Everything. The dominant elephant seal is aggressive, he's loud, he controls the entire beach. He is jerk in human terms. He doesn't care about the feelings of the other males. He often crushes them.
Okay.
But he is also the one who passes on his genes. Quirk is arguing that traits we might find obnoxious, socially aggression, dominance, risk-taking, were often indicators of high genetic fitness in our past.
So the guy who cuts you off in traffic might just be expressing his inner elephant seal.
And historically, that guy might have been the one to successfully defend the tribe or bring down the mammoth. The risk-taking behavior that makes him a jerk in a civilized society makes him a survivor in a dangerous one.
But wait a minute. Chapter 15 is titled How Kindness Became Sexy. So we like jerks, but we also like kindness. That seems like a contradiction.
This is the balance. The notes cite Jeffrey Miller again here. Altruism and kindness can also be fitness indicators.
Yeah.
They show that you have enough resources to spare. It's a signal that says, I'm so capable, I'm so successful that I can afford to be generous to others.
So the ultimate catch is a bad boy who is also a nice guy.
Or rather, a man who has the capacity for dominance, the bad boy, but chooses to invest those resources specifically in you and your offspring. The husband strategy.
Wow.
The index actually has entries for concubine versus wife mating strategies, implying that men categorize women, but women also categorize men. Women are looking for the hybrid, the genes of the jerk, but the behavior of the dad.
Just very complex marketplace.
Extreme.
And speaking of marketing and display, let's talk about art. Chapter 10. Bowerbirds teach us how art evolved to get the groupie.
This is one of my absolute favorite parts of evolutionary psychology, the bowerbird.
Explain the bowerbird for anyone listening who hasn't seen Planet Earth.
Okay, it's this bird in New Guinea and Australia. The male builds these incredibly elaborate structures. They're called bowers out of twigs. He builds 2 parallel walls. He paints them with berry juice.
Paints them.
Yes. And he decorates the area in front with specific objects, usually blue things, blue flowers, beetle shells, even plastic trash like bottle caps if they're the right color.
And this isn't a nest.
No, he doesn't live in it. It has no practical function. It's an art gallery.
He builds an entire art gallery just to get a date.
Purely for courtship. The females fly around, they inspect the art, and they mate with the male who has the best sense of design and the most symmetrical bower.
So Quirk and the scientist Jeffrey Miller, who he cites heavily, is saying that human art is the same thing. That Picasso was just a bowerbird with a paintbrush.
That is the theory, yes. The index entry for art actually describes it as a courtship device and even a con.
A con? Why a con?
Well, look at the index entry for bullshit.
Oh, this is good.
Bullshit!
As courtship device. And then postmodern bullshit.
The idea is that having a large vocabulary, being able to paint a masterpiece, being able to write a novel or tell amazing stories, these are expensive behaviors.
What do you mean by expensive?
They take a lot of brain power. They take time and energy that could be spent on survival. So they show off your cognitive fitness. If you can talk a good game or create something beautiful, you are demonstrating that your brain is healthy and complex and your genes are top-notch.
So when a guy is explaining his obscure record collection or using big words at dinner, he's basically just putting blue beetle shells in front of his bower.
He is arranging his bottle caps. Exactly. The index even has an entry for vocabulary as courtship device. And that art as con idea suggests that sometimes the display is just a display. It doesn't always correlate to being a good father or a good partner, but it gets the girl. It's about displaying the quality of the genes.
Which brings us, I think, to the darker side of things. It's not all poetry and bowers.
Not at all.
Section 4, the dark side. Jealousy, cheating, and war.
Chapter 27 is Bimbos and Cuckolds, What Makes Us Jealous.
And the index lists jealousy as an adaptation.
It is. It's not an emotion we learned. It's a software patch we evolved to solve a problem. But it works differently for men and women. The notes cite David Buss's work on this.
What's the difference?
Men across cultures are obsessed with sexual infidelity, the thought of it.
And why is that?
Because of paternity uncertainty. A man can never be 100% sure the baby is his, at least not before DNA testing. If his partner sleeps with someone else, he risks raising another man's genetic legacy.
An evolutionary disaster.
The ultimate disaster for his genes. He's putting all his resources, food, protection, time into genes that aren't his.
Hence the term cuckold.
Right. And that leads to that crazy chapter title in Chapter 30. When your wife sleeps with your brother and you're okay with that.
Okay, you have to explain that. Why would anyone ever be okay with that? That sounds like the plot of a terrible soap opera.
The logic is kin selection. The notes cite a study on wild turkeys.
Turkeys? What do turkeys have to do with this?
Male turkeys will sometimes help their brothers find mates, even if it means that they don't get to mate themselves.
Why would they do that?
Because the brother shares 50% of their genes. If your brother reproduces, your genes still get passed on, just indirectly. So theoretically, if your wife sleeps with your brother from a strictly genetic standpoint, it's not as bad as if she sleeps with a total stranger. It's still your family's DNA.
That is an incredibly cold mathematical way to look at a massive family crisis.
Honey, I'm upset, but statistically, at least it's 50% of my genome. That's biology for you. But for women, jealousy is often triggered more by emotional infidelity.
Because if he falls in love with someone else, he takes his resources away from her and her children.
Exactly. The loss of investment is the primary risk for the female. If he sleeps with someone else but comes home and still pays the bills, it's bad. But if he falls in love and leaves for good, it's catastrophic for the offspring's survival.
Okay. Now let's talk about free love. Chapter 26 says, free love causes war. That sounds like a complete contradiction. We usually say, make love, not war.
It sounds counterintuitive, but the citation here is Daly and Wilson's landmark book, Homicide.
Okay.
Here's the logic. In a society where some men hoard all the women, that's polygyny, or where free love means the most attractive, high-status men get all the action.
It becomes a winner-take-all market.
Exactly. You end up with a large surplus of young, unattached men at the bottom who have no prospect of finding a mate.
And young men with no prospects are dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. The historical and anthropological data shows a very strong link between polygynous societies and high rates of violence, homicide, and war.
So monogamy, or at least socially imposed monogamy,
by distributing mates more evenly, actually pacifies men. When every man has a reasonable chance at a family, the overall level of societal violence drops dramatically.
So marriage is a peace treaty.
In a biological and sociological sense, yes, it stabilizes the tribe.
Wow. Okay, we absolutely have to touch on the orgasm gap. Chapter 24 is titled, Why Your Clitoris is Hard to Find.
And the index, again, just hits it out of the park. Clitoris principle.
I'm looking at it now. It has sub-entries, directions to, location of, and quest for. And my personal favorite, Freud's cluelessness about.
Freud had this theory about the vaginal orgasm being mature and the clitoral orgasm being immature. Quirk and modern biology essentially says Freud was a complete idiot on this topic.
I see.
The notes cite the mating mind again. The clitoris is the only organ in the entire human body, male or female, designed exclusively for pleasure. It has no other function.
So why is it hard to find? Or, to be more clinical, why is the female orgasm often harder to achieve than the male one?
The theory discussed in Chapter 23, you don't have an orgasm has you, suggests the female orgasm might serve a kind of gatekeeping function.
A gatekeeper? How so?
Oh, there's the upsuck theory, the idea that the contractions of an orgasm help retain sperm and pull it towards the egg, increasing the chances of conception. If a woman has an orgasm, she is more likely to conceive.
Okay.
So by making it difficult, the female body ensures she only orgasms with a male she really likes, or one who is skilled enough and patient enough to trigger it.
It's a quality control
The
mechanism.
biological filter. If the male isn't attentive enough to make it happen, maybe his genes aren't the ones she wants to give that extra conception boost to.
All right, this is getting deep. Let's shift gears slightly. Section 5, Diverse Biologies. The book addresses orientation and gender, which I think surprises people who assume evolutionary psychology is only about man hunts, woman cooks.
That's a common misconception, yeah. Chapter 33 is Two Genes for Two Types of Gay Guys.
Two types.
Well, the notes cite Dean Hamer's famous study on DNA markers on the X chromosome.
The gay gene study.
The one that popularized that idea, yes. It suggested a genetic linkage for male sexual orientation.
But is it just one gene?
It's almost certainly more complex, but the key point is that there is a biological basis. But Quirk goes further. The index, for example, lists gay rams and lesbians at Wellesley.
That is a pairing I never thought I'd see in an index.
The gay rams refers to animal studies that show exclusive homosexuality in sheep. About 8% of rams will only mount other rams, even when fertile females are available.
So that proves it's not a choice or a lifestyle.
It's in nature, it's biological,
Yep.
but the text also discusses something called the Big Brother effect.
The Big Brother effect. What is that?
The more older brothers a man has, the more likely he is to be gay. Each successive male pregnancy seems to change the hormonal environment in the mother's womb.
Wow. So it's prenatal.
It links directly to the prenatal environment. The mother's immune system reacts slightly differently to each male fetus, and by the time you get to the third or fourth son, that hormonal wash in the womb is different.
And what about the brain structure itself? I see Simon Levay is mentioned here.
Yes, Levay's study on the hypothalamus, this was huge. He found a difference in the size of a specific cluster of neurons, the INAH3, between heterosexual and homosexual men.
What was the difference?
In gay men, this cluster was more similar in size to that of women. The implication is that sexual orientation is literally hardwired into the neural architecture, most likely by those prenatal hormones.
So again, the title of the book rings true. It's not you, it's biology. You don't choose who you're attracted to any more than you choose your eye color.
Correct. And this extends to transsexuality. There's a note for Chapter 36 citing a study on a sex difference in the human brain and its relation to transsexuality.
And what did they find?
They looked at a specific part of the brain, the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis. They found that in trans women, who are genetically male but identify as female, this brain structure resembled the female structure, not the male one.
So quite literally, a female brain in a male body.
That is what the neuroscience suggests. Quirk uses this to hammer home the point that our deep sense of self and gender is biological, not just a choice or a phase. It's deeply rooted in our architecture.
It really does reinforce the book's title over and over again. Okay, section 6, the emotional and cultural layer. We've talked about sperm, brains, and hormones. What about something like love?
Chapter 40, Falling in Love.
Is love just a trick our genes play on us? Or is it real?
Well, the notes cite work by Jankowiak and Fisher on a cross-cultural perspective on romantic love, and they found that romantic love exists in almost every single culture they studied.
So it's not a Western invention, not a Hollywood product.
Not at all. It's a human universal.
But why? What is the evolutionary function of love?
To keep parents together long enough to raise a helpless infant. That intense head-over-heels feeling is a massive dopamine cocktail designed to bind two people together for at least about 4 years.
Why 4 years?
That's roughly the time it takes in an ancestral environment to get a child to a semi-independent state, walking and weaned.
The 4-year itch.
Exactly. After 4 years, that intense chemical cocktail often wears off because, evolutionarily speaking, its primary job is done.
And smell plays a part in this, right?
Yeah.
I see MHC-dependent mate preferences in the notes for Chapter 21, Love Stinks.
Yes, MHC stands for Major Histocompatibility Complex. It's basically a set of genes that controls your immune system.
Okay.
The famous T-shirt study showed that women, when they're ovulating, prefer the smell of men whose immune systems are most different from their own.
So if he smells good to you, it means your kids will have stronger, more diverse immune systems.
That is exactly the theory. Opposites attract, genetically speaking. It prevents inbreeding and creates healthier offspring.
I also want to touch on facial expressions. Chapter 20, let's face it.
This cites Paul Ekman's work. It's foundational.
And what did he prove?
He proves that basic facial expressions are universal. A smile means the same thing in New York as it does in a remote, uncontacted tribe in Papua New Guinea.
So we don't learn to smile from our parents.
No, we are born with the software for it. Even babies who are born blind smile. They've never seen a smile, but they do it. It's hardwired.
Which brings us, I think, to the triune brain.
Yeah.
I see Paul MacLean mentioned in chapter 19.
This is kind of the grand unifying theory of the book, the idea that we have three brains, not one.
3 brains in 1 skull.
Right. The reptilian brain at the base for instincts, survival, aggression. Then the limbic system, the mammalian brain for emotions, bonding, social behavior. And then the neocortex on top for logic, language, art, taxes.
And I'm guessing they don't always get along.
They're constantly arguing. Your reptile wants to fight the guy who just cut you off. Your limbic brain wants to cry because your girlfriend is mad. And your neocortex is trying to figure out if you can afford another drink.
And usually the reptile wins.
Or at least the reptile grabs the steering wheel before the neocortex even notices the car is moving. Quirk argues that most of our modern problems come from these three roommates living in one skull and basically hating each other.
Okay, we are nearing the end, but we simply cannot finish this deep dive without a dedicated tour of the useless index.
We have to.
I know we've sprinkled them in, but some of these are just pure gold.
It is so rare to see an author have this much fun with an index. It's usually the driest, most boring part of a book.
Okay, let's just run through a few. Farts of bacteria.
A reference to the biological origins of gases. It's a way to remind us we are just walking ecosystems for bacteria.
Bozo the clown, as mate choice.
I believe that one links to the discussion of why women sometimes choose, well, less than optimal partners, the entertainer gene over the provider gene.
Austin Jane, pornographic version.
A nod to the hidden steaminess of Victorian courtship signals, maybe? Or how repressed societies make even a single glance feel pornographic.
And here's a theological one for you. God is not listed, but Gandhi and Gates, as in Bill, are.
He has his priorities.
Hell is listed, and Hieronymus Bosch.
Which is very fitting for a discussion on the eternal torment of dating.
This one is personal. Critics as losers.
A preemptive strike.
And my favorite, publisher, incompetence, and inferiority to author.
You just have to admire the sheer bravery of putting that in a book your publisher is actually printing and distributing.
It really shows Quirk's whole personality. He's inviting you not just to learn, but to laugh at the absurdity of our own biological condition.
And that's so important, because if you take this stuff too seriously, the genetic determinism, the cuckoldry, the sperm wars, it can be incredibly depressing. The humor reminds us that we are all in this ridiculous boat together.
So let's wrap this up. What is the big takeaway here? We've looked at the notes, the heavy science, the jokes about butts and testicles. What does it all mean at the end of the day?
The source material paints a picture of humanity that is deeply, profoundly ancient. It suggests that everything from our appreciation of a painting to the flash of jealousy we feel when a partner looks at someone else to the very shape of our bodies is the result of millions of years of sexual selection and survival pressure.
We are, as I said before, monkeys in shoes.
Monkeys in shoes, navigating ancient urges in a digital world.
For me, the takeaway is actually, it's a relief. That title, it's not you, it's biology, is validated. It's not that I'm crazy or my ex was crazy. It's that we have these competing programs running in our heads. The reptile wants one thing, the neocortex wants another, and my genes just want to get into the next generation by any means necessary.
That's a very healthy way to view it. But I would add a critical thinking note here. While the biology is powerful, the canvas, as it were, the book itself does cite culture. It mentions clothes, movies, laws. We aren't robots. We have a neocortex for a reason. We can override the programming. Biology is the urge, not necessarily the destiny.
We can choose not to be the elephant seal on the beach.
Exactly. We can feel the urge to be a jerk and choose to be kind. We can feel the flash of jealousy and choose to trust. That's what makes us human.
I want to leave the listener with one final thought, and it comes from the index, of course. We talked about Homo sapiens. But the index also lists Homo sapiens, and then right below it, Homo perverto.
A distinct and perhaps more honest subspecies.
It makes you wonder, if our biology dictates our behavior so strongly, our perversions, our desires, our quest for ass, are we actually in control of our relationships? Or are we just vehicles designed by our ancestors, driven by our genes, blindly trying to park in the garage of the future?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it?
Next time you look at your partner, or lack thereof, take a closer look. You might just see the Pleistocene staring back at you. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.